I am a Star Wars prequel baby through and through. The prequel movies were my bread and butter. Anytime my dad had like another batch of laundry to do that he had to iron, either Star Wars or Lord of the Rings would come on. We'd like call them the ironing movies. And they just in succession, just one after the other. That alongside like numerous all-nighters that we had. Both of these franchises are like tattooed onto my brain. So of course, when I saw Phantom Menace and Darth Maul came on the screen, I was like, oh my God, what is this? This is the best movie ever. But then when Duel of Fates came on and the soundtrack came sweeping in, everything came together, and it's very safe to say that my very young mind was absolutely blown. Someone recently commented on one of my videos, and I cannot for the life of me find the comment, but thank you so much for suggesting this. They asked me to discuss that scene and in general discuss the Duel of Fates theme throughout Star Wars. The question is, what does Duel of Fates actually reference to? Why was the soundtrack named that? And what's the importance behind that naming convention? So we all know the song, right? It's an absolute masterpiece by John Williams. I've done a whole video about just the importance of soundtracks in general, so if you do want to watch that, I will link it down below as well. But the soundtrack in this scene, it just added this extra oomph to it. The scene is so incredibly dynamic with extreme highs and extreme lows, packed in a very short sequence. We have moments of fighting and dueling and high stakes, and then we have these moments of calm and mindfulness, which actually as a kid they confused me a lot, seeing Qui-Gon Jinn sit and ponder what is going on and collecting himself. That was something I wasn't expecting to see from a Jedi at all, while you see Darth Maul kind of taunting him, and this dichotomy between Jedi and Sith, it's just a great scene. And so as I mentioned, we have Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi finding themselves in this situation. Obi-Wan is very much the younger Jedi, the Padawan. He's ready to go. This scene for him is very much an active physical duel. It's him against a Sith apprentice. Qui-Gon Jinn, however, seems to have a deeper understanding of what's going on. There is a deeper meaning behind the fact that Darth Maul's come here. He's not just here to foil the plans of two Jedi Knights. Something else is at play. Qui-Gon Jinn has this sincere quality around him, and it's something I actually started to notice more and more the more I watched all of the other movies and saw who the Jedi were in general. While the Jedi are usually seen as good and the Sith as bad, the Jedi can also be stiff, political, cold, and unemotional. But Qui-Gon Jinn to me just somehow didn't fit that description anymore. This view I started having of the Jedi as the movies go on, and both their successes but also their failures, Qui-Gon Jinn started to stand out. He seems calm, sensitive, collected, and at times almost as thoughtful as a Jedi like Yoda. So when, spoilers, he immediately dies in the first movie, I was like, sorry, what are we doing? And then when a minute later, Darth Maul, a really super cool antagonist, dies as well, I was like, this movie, this is a cinematic masterpiece, my like 7-year-old self. The more I think about The Phantom Menace, the more I have to give it kudos for killing off two really interesting and complex characters straight away. Not a lot of movies would do that, and I actually think it does make sense that it happens. They didn't just do it for shock value, right? There's a reason this happens. It's incredibly important for Qui-Gon Jinn to die. But so for all of those still saying that the prequels suck, I really think you have to rethink that. But that being said, I'm not going to go into that entire conversation. If you want to see a very active live discussion about that, please feel free to watch my Anakin Skywalker video and go into the comments section. There's lots of people to talk to there about it. Now, all of this to say, as we said, Duel of Fates is playing in the background as we see Qui-Gon Jinn and Kenobi battle with Maul. But the naming for this soundtrack isn't just another kind of what should we name it? There's a real reason behind why it's called that. This name is telling us exactly what is happening in this exact moment and the consequences that the outcome will have. The universe is letting its inhabitants duel over both its own fate and the intertwined fate of Anakin. Is Anakin going to become Anakin Skywalker, or is he going to become Darth Vader? Who will live? Who will die, and what consequences will that have for this decision on destiny? What if Maul wins? Imagine that. If Maul had won, I think there's two things he could have done. Either he kills Anakin because he sees his potential and power straight away, or I guess he takes him with him to Darth Sidious. But having done an entire deep dive on Darth Maul, and I think I understand his character fairly well, I think it's safe to say he would have killed Anakin. I don't think he would have shown any mercy to him. But that didn't happen. Maul didn't survive, although he kind of did. But for the purposes of The Phantom Menace, he didn't survive. But neither did Qui-Gon Jinn. And so to understand the impact of Qui-Gon Jinn's death, we have to look at who he is to Anakin. While I think Obi-Wan Kenobi was very much initially a friend to Anakin and turned almost into a brother-like figure, I think it's clear to say that Qui-Gon very much took on a father role. Qui-Gon disregards the Jedi Council's orders to not take Anakin on. He takes him on as a Padawan. He tries to shelter him, and I think he's always honest with Anakin about what it means to be a Jedi. He doesn't shy away from the struggles of that and the impact choosing this path will have on Anakin. He doesn't look away when Anakin struggles to say goodbye to his mother, which is very different to how the Jedi Council deals with this in subsequent movies where they all, and yes, that includes Obi-Wan Kenobi, turn away at the uncomfortable truth that Anakin has emotional baggage. But Qui-Gon Jinn looks at it, he faces it, and I think he thinks he has a way to help, but then he dies. His journey with Anakin is cut short and the impact he could have had on him is immediately erased. But imagine if he hadn't. What if Qui-Gon Jinn had survived? What if Anakin had had this father figure, someone who could help him deal with all of his trauma? So let's play out the alternate reality. Qui-Gon Jinn defeats Darth Maul, maybe Obi-Wan Kenobi dies during the fight, and he takes on Anakin as an apprentice. In my personal opinion, this is just an opinion, this is not fact, if Qui-Gon Jinn survives, Anakin stays in the light. It's that simple. Me making this statement, by the way, and I am going to deep dive why I think that, is not a direct reflection on whether I think that Obi-Wan Kenobi should have been able to save Anakin and he failed him as a master. I don't think that. It's very, very nuanced. But I do think that if Qui-Gon had been alive, things would have gone very differently. The reason why I think this is let's look at why Anakin falls to the dark side. What are the motivators that push him towards the dark? Without, of course, going into another entire deep dive just about that. That's a video really in and of itself, but just from a high level. It's his attachments and his fear of abandonment. It's his pain of leaving his mother behind and not being able to save her, or feeling like he's never good enough and he wasn't good enough to save her. It's fear of losing his wife, the woman who's dreamed about ever since he met her, the woman who's carrying his children, and then it's the grooming by Palpatine. So, how would Qui-Gon Jinn have been able to support Annie through all of these issues? Starting with the death of his mother, when Anakin starts having nightmares about Shmi, I don't think Qui-Gon Jinn would have told him to let go of attachments. I believe he would have either gone to Tatooine with him to try and save his mother, or he would have had a very open dialogue with Anakin about how to deal with his pain and fear without denying it having a place. Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering, right? Absolutely, it does. But do you know what else leads to suffering? Repression, denial of feelings, and internalized shame. Something the Jedi maybe weren't as well equipped to deal with when Anakin started to deal with these issues. And I think Qui-Gon Jinn would have been there to support him. I think he would have been the father figure. I think Anakin would have felt more open to talk to him. And I know he talks to Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I know Obi is there. But I think it's safe to say that Obi has a closer relationship to the Jedi Council, or is more aligned with the Council than maybe Qui-Gon would have been. And then we have Padme and the fear of losing her. When Anakin falls for Padme, I don't think Qui-Gon Jinn would have played along with this open denial that the Jedi Council seems to have. They all knew. Like, let's be real, they all knew, right? I will die on this hill. All of them knew, not just Obi-Wan, all of them knew. They chose to ignore it. They chose not to talk about it. They chose to play along rather than check in with Anakin from time to time. When Anakin comes to Yoda in Revenge of the Sith, it's clear that he's struggling with nightmares about Padme. Yoda knows this. I don't think this is a secret, yet they all still tend to look away from it and give him riddles and mysteries to solve rather than just talk straight to the point. Really, they should have been a bit more Dutch, you know? We get to the point. We don't like pussyfoot around it. Additionally, I think Anakin would have told Qui-Gon about his nightmares that he has about his mother, and so it makes sense that he would talk to Qui-Gon about the nightmares he's now having about Padme. Again, I'm not suggesting that Obi-Wan wasn't a mentor to Anakin or wasn't there for Anakin more than others, but I do think there's still an aspect to the story here where Obi maybe could have done more. When he goes to Padme at the end and says, he's the father, isn't he? That's not him asking that question, it's more a confirmation of what he already knows. I think Qui-Gon Jinn would have been able to help Anakin navigate the feelings. I think he would have been there as a sounding board, and I think he would have supported him in a way that Obi just didn't. And then most importantly, we have to talk about the grooming by Palpatine. Palpatine groomed Anakin by acting like a father figure. If Qui-Gon was there and had already taken that spot, there's no spot to take. And of course, it's not that simple. And of course, there would have been other things as well. This is very nuanced. None of this is black and white. Nothing in Star Wars is black and white. It's all filled with nuance and extra things that could have happened. But I truly think it's safe to say that if Qui-Gon had been there would have been less space for Palpatine to whisper nothings into Anakin's ear and play on his feelings that he feels he can't talk to anyone about. I do wonder why it is Anakin and Obi don't talk about him and Padme more and don't talk about his feelings and his fears there. I know Obi knows. And obviously with the additional context we got afterwards of the Clone Wars series where we know Obi himself also had someone and had Satine and lost her, I don't understand why these two characters didn't talk more, but again, a separate topic about when the movies came out versus the Clone Wars afterwards and where it patched things up and, you know, whether you want to see it as separate things or an entire story. I don't know. But alas, it wasn't meant to be. Qui-Gon Jinn dies and a young Anakin is left to ask,
what will happen to me now?
Council have granted me permission to train you. You will be a Jedi. I promise.
And the universe chooses Obi-Wan Kenobi. The Duel of Fates is played out and it's Obi-Wan who survives and it's Qui-Gon Jinn who dies. That was almost like a bit of sound poetry right there. And also, let's not die on a hill here that maybe fate and destiny don't exist. I think in a universe where something like the Force exists, it's very okay to talk about fate and destiny and how all of these things are intertwined together. And I think this was the moment that Anakin's fate was sealed. The moment destiny decides, will Anakin turn into Darth Vader or will he remain Anakin Skywalker? This scene maybe isn't a moment where we see fate duel between Qui-Gon versus Obi. It's a duel between Annie versus Darth Vader. Which road are we going to go down? I know this is all very presumptuous. This is all my opinion. This isn't fact. You're very much allowed to disagree. Please tell me what you think in the comments below. I'm always open for a very good, respectful dialogue, but we aren't done yet. Don't worry. I have a few more things to say. I never shut up about Star Wars. I love to yap. Because actually this theme, the Duel of Fates, occurs a few more times throughout the other movies. And this is where the importance of music comes back. John Williams is a genius because he doesn't just reuse the song because it sounds good. He uses Duel of Fates when a character is at a crossroads where their soul is at stake. What will the universe decide and what decision is this character going to make and how is it going to impact the direction of the galaxy, which each time is also tied to Anakin's fate? The first time we hear it again is in Attack of the Clones when Anakin is looking for his mother on Tatooine. Anakin is frantically looking throughout the desert on his own. There's no one there to guide him and he's led purely by emotion and fear. Fear of his nightmares coming true and him losing his mother, also due to what he will perceive as his own internal failure. So why are we listening to Duel of Fates during this scene again? This is the moment Anakin has to choose whether he's able to let go or let himself be guided by his emotions. Is he able to let go of his anger? Not necessarily his pain, but his need for revenge. If you want to like super simplify it, you could say he has a choice between, am I going to deal with my anger in like a genocidal way or in a more mature way? But of course, again, it's more nuanced than that. And so does he choose an action purely based out of emotion, revenge, or does he choose to take his mother with him and bury her and let go of his shame and guilt? He makes the decision to kill the entire village. A turning point for his development and something that will impact the progression of his character throughout the next two movies. I say the next two, I mean the rest of Attack of the Clones and then Revenge of the Sith. Very importantly though, we hear Qui-Gon Jinn in the background screaming no. It's most likely the first time that Qui-Gon Jinn was able to make a connection with the real world, while not in a physical form yet. It's clear Qui-Gon is still looking out for Anakin. He's still acting like a father figure to him, but unfortunately Annie kind of shakes this off as he must have misheard something. He doesn't pay too much attention to it, and he also doesn't mention it to Obi-Wan or to Yoda as far as I'm aware. And so he ignores his former master pleas and just makes another decision that sets his destiny into place. Then we hear it again in Revenge of the Sith when Yoda and Palpatine are dueling at the same time as Annie and Obi. However, we hear it more when it's Yoda and Palpatine dueling, so I want to focus a little bit on that duel specifically. Again, it's called the Duel of Fates, but this isn't just a fight, right? It's the Duel of Fate of the Republic. The fate of the Republic is actively tied to the fate of Anakin. Will he fall to the dark side fully, or will they find a way to stop this entire catastrophe from happening? Will Yoda succeed in killing Palpatine and removing Anakin's groomer from the narrative? At the same time, of course, will Obi-Wan manage to save Anakin's soul from himself and his own anger and despair? Both fail, not just Obi, not just Yoda. they both fail at their mission. There's a reason both of them go into hiding. It's not just because the Sith is like looking to get rid of all the Jedis, it's because they have failed their missions. And so the fate is sealed. Anakin turns into Darth Vader, and for years to come, this is who he is. Now, of course, we have a bit of a redemption arc in the originals. However, again, without going into too much detail, I do want to note here that Anakin is only redeemed in Luke's eyes. Anakin is not redeemed in the eyes of the entire galaxy. This is very much a father-son moment, which is why we only see Luke at the burning of Anakin/Darth Vader's body. Yes, there's the other argument that they eventually turned Anakin's Force ghost into him before he turned to the dark side, so with the Force in a way he's redeemed himself, but in the eyes of the rest of the galaxy he was very much like a genocidal maniac, so let's not forget that. But when do you think his fate was sealed? Was it the moment Qui-Gon Jinn died? Was it the moment Anakin reacted to his mother's death by committing genocide? Was it at the end of Revenge of the Sith? Or was it somewhere in between? Was it during a battle in the Clone Wars? Was it on Mortis? Let me know. I really want to know what you think. This is such an exciting topic. I'm so grateful for this comment. I thought about this a little bit, and a few weeks ago I actually had a conversation with one of my friends about Qui-Gon Jinn as a character in general. But this has been such a fun video to do a little bit of research on and just think about my thoughts and my feelings while watching these movies. So please keep them coming. Please, if you have any suggestions, anything you want to see, please tell me. I am so open for all of them. Whether it's Star Wars, whether it's Lord of the Rings, whether it's another franchise, whether it's a TV show, please let me know. I really want to deep dive all of it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next dimension.